physically I was quite fragile. So I thought I would not last. 75% of the prison population actually are under trials. Political prisoners write prison memoirs, and they serve many, many purposes. Okay, it's a kind of documentation also, the historical documentation as.
Hello everyone, I'm Nikita Jain and you're watching Maktoob. Today we are honored to have with us Mr. Anand Teltumbde. Mr. Teltumbde is a prominent Indian scholar, writer, and human rights activist. In 2018, he was implicated in the Elgar Parishad Bhima Koregaon case and spent 31 months in prison. He was released on bail in November 2022. Mr. Teltumbde has released an autobiography called The Cell and the Soul, where he writes about his wrongful incarceration, the resilience it demanded, and the deep anguish he and others felt with the judicial system. Thank you so much for giving us the time, Mr. Teltumbde. Firstly, how are you? How are you feeling? I just wanted to know that.
No, I'm quite okay.
Okay.
So there are no visible problems.
We're glad. So I would like first to ask you about your time inside prison and what made you decide to book about
So I had something like a 20 months time,
it.
uh, which was spent in having the wrong support for questioning my petition, questioning the charge sheet. And thereafter, as per Supreme Court instruction, to seek anticipatory bail. So I was, and in between, I had a stint of something like 13 hours police custody in Pune. And thereafter, we commonly surrendered to NI. So NI also I was there for 11 days. So there was something like uh, mental preparation as to what it would be like. Okay. But when you go inside the prison, it kind of still surprises there. Like now that is going to be a world, When I went there, I didn't expect that I would come out alive. So the kind of life I led and all that kind of thing, it was quite the same. And my physically, I was quite fragile. So I thought I would not last. But mentally, that kind of preparation is there. So that lightened the weight of prison stay. Prison is a prison anyway. So the kind of philosophy which under right prison is that the punishment, this is a per se punishment. Anybody landing up into the prison is seen like a criminal.
Yeah.
When a court declares you uh, convict or not, they are taken as criminals. 75% of the prison population actually are under trials. So this practically is slap in the face. But all people become prisoner, and prisoners are to be punished. The jailer, this entire prison system actually looks on the basis that more the punishment, the better it is for these people.
Like the process becomes like
Yeah, of course, our teacher was different in prison, but the minimal kind of that, those kinds of processes like humiliation uh, and surveillance and uh, discipline, etc., etc. Uh, nobody escapes. So that itself used to be quite a great deal. I write prison memoir. We consider ourselves political prisoners. Okay, we have not done any crime as such, not even a crime which might come quote unquote political crime.
yeah.
But we were taken in. So all most political prisoners write prison memoirs, and they serve many many purposes. Okay, it's a kind of documentation also, the historical documentation as that reflects what state of the state is, how the state treats it, prison, etc., prisoners, etc. And it becomes beyond personal catharsis. It's a kind of way of processing the trauma of living. So those kinds of things happen. because when I started writing, I was sure that I would write after if I come out alive, I would certainly write about things. So writing becomes survival strategy. What else you do there? So and so that becomes something like a process of uh, and survival itself. The how to endure that kind of hardship or psychological state, etc. So you keep busy with writing, reading, etc. So these all prison memoirs that wrote were 22 notes out of more than 100 paras in my notebook. I went on writing and where uh, the publisher actually approached me. Uh, So then I just randomly ticked and collected in the format of uh, making it a present memoir. In the tradition of earlier prisoners, who were political prisoners. So this came naturally. So there was not, and even when I came out, I have not tinkered with my those notes very much because that rawness, etc., is quite visible out there. So excepting for the language, etc., I have not tinkered much. So it stayed there. Maybe if I would have written it in a better format, better way, but I thought that would be unnecessary polish. So
It's also visible in the book that rawness is there.
yeah. The purpose of writing is very evident that all prison memoirs actually become a historical documentation. It actually mirrors the state of things, how how sadist the prison system is organized, the the criminal justice system, the ports, and the plight of the poor strata. Like most prisoners, very disproportionately to their numbers, or the population. Dalit, Adivasis, Muslims, etc. constitute the majority among the prisoners. So that also mirrors the state of things into the people, not the public.
Answered the my next question about the identity of the prisoners. Also, you're not fragile. I mean, you're out there with us. Um, so you've also answered like how do you see your writing, but I would still ask how do you reflect on the act of writing from within? Is it a resistance, a memory, a survival? You said it is a survival. It is also a factor of resistance for you, writing from within the prison.
Writing from within. Yeah. Uh, Initially, we imagined that the reading books, etc., might not be allowed. But after going there, I, I realized that those were allowed because the people had to fight earlier and they used to throw tantrums. The administration used to throw tantrums about nothing they would give easily. So everything you have to fight. But then it was sorted out that books were allowed from outside. So that comforted me. Then slowly, I started getting confidence that, okay, I could survive this. So this way it went.
Even though you were falsely implicated, do you ever think do you ever wonder if you would have done something differently? You know,
No, not at all. Because we have not done anything wrong. So there was nothing to do differently also. Because whatever I was implicated for, I started rather doing it with a greater intensity. Because earlier I was a corporate executive, I was CEO of a company. Okay, so most of my books or most of my writing happened in either aeroplane or hotels, abroad, or all such kind of thing because I did not have very carved out time to do such activities. But now I have given up that job that I had in Goa Institute. And I'm completely a retired person, so I have all the time to at my disposal. And I started doing it with greater intensity. People get amazed. Really, I produce something like 2-3 articles a week. And I wrote after at least 6 books this year itself. So which probably could be very difficult about.
Says a lot. Um, what do you think the state achieves by keeping political prisoners in jail without trial? And they denied and wait for years. I mean, so many political prisoners are still in jail. Their bails are denied.
What the state gains?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, that is their purpose. Particularly political prisoners are detained in jail uh, to punish the persons in concern. That is all right. But a message is sent outside to all people who want to emulate that. So it is a mechanism for curbing the dissent across the country, because you make examples of some people who was notable. Okay, so seeing their plight and notable in sense that they have public recognition, they have high status, etc., etc. So if the state can imprison them and do anything to them, then the message is automatic, for the outside world that behave or else. So it is basically a terrorizing people and preventing the dissent in the society. So that's how the purpose. And the state, as regards bail, without bail, or delay the trial, etc., that is also a kind of tactics, which is very legal, because in legal framework there are nothing like time bound things. So it goes on and on and on. Now our the first batch arrestee, two of them are still in jail. There are six of them are still in prison. But these two arrestees are something like in 8th year of their imprisonment. And there is no bail, nothing. They're just struggling for getting out. So this goes on. State would kind of drag it on and on. The charges are not framed, and they have created a facade of something like the more than 300 or some such witnesses, which might take 15 years. And even if trial starts. So when does the trial start? And thereafter 15 or whatever number of years, they can prolong, because this is a new phenomenon now, moreover, with this current regime. So this would drag. Many of us would be many extinct. We would have been dead by that time.
And you think it works in a sense that a lot of people at one point, because the incarceration is so long, also give up. And in a sense, because it also involves their family, their political prisoner, their families, equally impacted with whatever has happened.
Of course, it's not a punishment to a person, as I said, as I said earlier, that it's a message to outside to behave and conform to what is going on. But in regards to punishment, it is not the punishment to person, it's punishment to entire family. Rather, it is punishment to more bigger punishment to family than the person concerned. The families get disturbed, In my case, in my wife, who was a simple housewife, they did not have any political background, etc. Those people who had some activist background, etc., they could understand. But some simple people could not imagine that such thing can happen to their lives. My daughters were there; they were abroad. They were not even close to me. So it was quite a traumatic experience of 31 months that they underwent.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how hard it was for you. Um, this is something that I feel is like I really want to understand from you. Do you think that Bhima Koregaon case was just not a case, but a warning or a prototype of what will happen if you dissent, of how or how you'll be criminalized in the years to come. We've seen that in now with the political prisoners of anti-CA protests and other movements. So you think that maybe Bhima Koregaon it became a precedent for the authorities?
Yeah, it's already being treated as a model all over the world, not for India. That how a state could be vicious and how can they actually formulate a case. It already became, it is become a point of discussion world over. that this is a format, because such a thing happened in Turkey, at the Erdogan. So the president was said something like that. There could be president in authoritarian regimes, but there they had arrested a number of people, something like 600 people. Among them, there were journalists, intellectuals, students, all kinds of people, and most of them with a fabricated kind of evidence. So rather, one of the journalists who was arrested, the police wanted to implant some documents in his computer. Remotely, they could not do, so they broke open his thing in night and inserted those things and came out. And that became an evidence for that. And the Arsenal Consulting in US actually investigated the forensic firm, investigated, and they opened up everything out, how everything was done. In Arsenal, in our case also in Bhima Koregaon, Arsenal Consulting actually examined forensically all our hard disks and came out with 5 reports. Okay, many of them are in public domain, but nothing happens. So whatever, everything is in public domain, right? From the arrest, like when they confiscated the digital devices of people, and when they made it available. That happened unfortunately with me being outside. So we ourselves, I myself, it did not take 5 minutes to figure it out. So how it did that?
It's quite scary, I think, how easy also it has become. I also wanted to talk about the current Dalit movement and how you see it. Do you think has it moved closer to or away from Ambedkar's vision?
Current Dalit movement, it's a phrase very lazily used, but there is no movement today. To be closer or to be away from Ambedkar. It has drifted away from Baba Sahib's vision long back. If you actually see the trajectory of Dalit movement post Ambedkar, then it's very pathetic. It actually got degenerated into factionalism and opportunism with very many ideological kinds of things. So somebody would project something like an ideological differences. Most of the time, the Dalit movement split or wanted to split, having something like ideological alibi. I don't know. This is some faction would be accused of not following Ambedkarism and following communism. This communism became always a kind of contra or an excuse, for splitting or going the opportunistic way. The Republican Party, when it was formed in 1957, Baba Sahib died in 1956. So that party also split along on the same axis, like the one faction accusing the other faction which wanted to take up something like a land question, etc. They accused them that agitation or struggle are not an Ambedkarian groundwork. Baba Sahib Ambedkar University institution and also is to follow constitutional methods. So they are actually in lack of communists. So they are not Ambedkarites. So on that issue, it's split. Seeing the plight of the Republican Party in 70s, Dalit path arose out of educated Dalit youth, etc. They articulated the movement, and it was quite promising to start with. But when one faction came out with something like expanded definition of Dalit and encompassing all the oppressed people, etc., the other faction said that, and they came out with a manifesto of that kind, that Ambedkar, the struggle of Dalit is nowhere confined to something like scheduled caste, but it actually expands to take on the system itself. The all oppression there against all oppression, all exploitation, etc. So this was not palatable to other section. Other section again to make a capital out of Ambedkarism, etc. And then accusing the other faction that therefore it's not Ambedkarism, it's Marxism. So now it became something like Ambedkarism became a Buddhism. They say that Baba Sahib Ambedkar gave to us lastly is a Buddhism. So we have to follow Buddhist method. And these are the communist method. So on that issue, they split. Today also, it now got so degenerated that there is no sort of organized response to such a repetition of this kind. But this remains, the Dalits would not touch communist or Marx with a barge pole. They can easily go onto the lap of BJP, Hindutva process or Brahminical process. That Ambedkar, the entire life, fought against.
Yeah, that's great. Interesting. You have also long argued for the synthesis of Makerite and Marxist thought. Why do you think both sides remain reluctant to engage each other?
No, my argument is not the synthesis of Marxism and Ambedkarism. That cannot be synthesized. Both are one of different philosophical things. So there is no match in them. So anybody trying to kind of amalgamate Marxism, Ambedkarism, so-called, because I do not use the language of precepts also. So they would not succeed in that, and that they would get only confused. Okay, my conviction is that these two things stand on a different philosophical footing, and there is no match in them. They stand apart. But at the praxis level, at the programmatic level, there was the need for all these streams to converge. For that, actually, I have written a lot and I have done a lot. Okay, probably maximum more than anybody else. So that needs to be done even today. That at the programmatic level, the Dalits and all left people, that actually combines entire working class. Because Dalits are working class, even by Ambedkar's definition, when he formed the Independent Labour Party. So we defined Dalits as something like Dalits as absolutely working class. So there is nothing like, and that has also been the bane of the contention between Ambedkar and Marx, because they share the same constituency. These communists also said this, they spoke the working class, but most of the Dalits were working class. And Dalit, when Ambedkar was actually speaking with Dalit, they also meaning they stood as a working class also. So they had a dual character. So that was also behind the contention between the two streams. There were historical reasons why they were diverged and why these contentions were there. That's a different matter, because both people reflected their emphasis, that made a difference, because while communists saw the problem and saw the emancipation in universal term, through class struggle, Ambedkar saw it something like a particular kind of wound inflicted by the casteism, and they wanted emancipation in those terms. So these were actually both streams. If you minutely see in programmatic term, they said the same thing or similar things, but the language was different. Okay, and incidentally, sort of this thing, there are lots of problems with communists also that had happened during those days, that their understanding of Marxism itself was borrowed from something like Britain, etc. And they did not really confront the Indian reality. And so that caste was just a superstructural thing. Once the revolution happened, the caste would be taken away, thing. Ambedkar in vehemence, to counter that, they said that this class analysis is not going to work. This universal solution might really invisibilize the Dalit oppression by caste. So the Ambedkar then spoke about the annihilation caste. But the similarity comes strikingly that without annihilation of caste, nothing, no class struggle also could be possible in this country.
And how do you see Dalit and what can be done to what more do you think needs to be done?
In this line, feminism and Ambedkarism,
Yeah.
no, this stand they actually stands commonsensically also and even historically, historical imperative that these two streams have to converge. If any good thing or radical change has to happen in India, it would be through the conversion of these two streams. If these people with conviction come together and work together, that would be the key to the solution.
Uh, I have a related question, which you also mentioned in your book about the question of division within the civil society. And do you think that a unified mortal front could have prevented so many incarcerations?
Yeah, in a sense, civil society is so fragmented, and India poses a very qualitatively different kind of problem about civil society because so fragmented a society in caste, in class, in regions, languages, dresses. So we should one way it becomes a strength of this land in terms of diversity, etc. But civil society, in terms of solidarity, etc., it does not. It becomes very difficult with such kind of fragmentation. So every fragment thinks or views oppression when it happens to it, okay, and doesn't identify it happening or it doesn't kind of extend his imagination that such and such thing happening to these fellows could happen to me too tomorrow. It that sense is not there, you know. So this way, one way that it that is correct. Civil society, there is a moral kind of unity among people. What is wrong, right, etc. On those terms, and if they had overcome the kind of fear, that could have been a palpable resistance to the state against its impunity. You know. It would not have behaved berserk, catching anybody anytime and take life. It would have simply resisted it. And so this is not happening because of this kind of thing. It was very sectarian kind of behavior society, civil society emits.
Uh, so your incarcerations along with others it has taken away a lot from the people. He also lost Jain Sai Baba and Stan Swami in the whole, the whole trialing process. And they were more than personal tragedies. They were a systematic, cruelty and death. Um, how has their loss impacted you personally?
Yeah, I knew both of them. Sai Baba was arrested in Pune, and I happened to be in a member of a defense committee, although I did not participate in any way, being a only man outside of Delhi. Mostly people, Hani Babu took probably initiative and constituted that defense committee. Uh, and most of the members were from Delhi. I and its chairman, Harbopal, if I remember correct, were the outsiders. Harbopal being a chairman used to go, I was a full member, and I never had an opportunity to participate. I think I was outside Bombay also. Firstly in Kharagpur, then Goa. We had most of the nomadic ancestries. So, but Sai Baba I knew. As Sai Baba I knew, he invited me to Delhi University for some lectures that I have to. When he met me somewhere in lectures in JLU. Uh, so this way I had superficially knew him and his work more than that. Uh, so I was aware of Sai Baba. Sai Baba was 90% a disabled person, he was only stricken right in childhood and couldn't do much. Initially he used to uh, kind of uh, what do you crawl on the roads and reach them. Then later on, we bought his wheelchair, later on his car and all that kind. But it was pathetic cake that he was arrested. That kind of the way that he was treated inside the jail without medical care and so much of a heavy propaganda against him, projecting him as something like the most dangerous person. The child could calling him something like, I would have actually given him a death punishment because his mind is most dangerous. So all kinds of things happening to him, and he endured all that kind of thing and came clean out of High Court, not only once but twice. Okay, so all people, all his colleagues also were acquitted. Stands for me, I did not know initially before going to jail, but then stands for me, I think, in a closer acquaintance in jail itself, because most of the times he was put in hospital where I was lodged. And I had daily kind of, we used to have a common walk together in corridors, etc. I was a very godly person, I was the father, but not every father might be like that. So he was so much full of extension motivation, so much identifying with the oppressed Adivasis with whom he lived in Jharkhand, and very innocent person. So really internalized the pain of poor people, and wanted to do constantly some people there to alleviate that pain. So such people, you can say, were killed by the system. Sai Baba, of course, he came out, but all that kind of thing that happened inside the jail actually damaged his health beyond repair. And in one oppressor, I think Galtwider or something, like they were trying to reboot, and it was successful, but then it got infected, and then it approved factory. Stands for me, uh, technically died in jail only, in custody, as an under-trial prisoner. He was taken out, he was with us, and I end stands on me in the hospital barrack, where monitored daily, our blood pressure or oximeter reading, all those things that we take to stands for me. With the reading actually start dipping below 80, and it is alarming, that much common knowledge anybody has. So I personally went to doctor and requested him to take him out. Okay, something big to happen. But on third day, when the court order came, then only they took him outside to the Holy Family was okay. So we were quite happy. Inside the Jain, he was tested negative, COVID negative. Outside, it always happened. Inside jail, you would test negative. Outside, that would be positive. So in Swami's case, also same thing happened. But initially, the reports were that he recovered, and we were quite happy. But suddenly, after some time, he collapsed. He went in. So next day, he died. So it was really a shock, for a person. I took a shock because I was a person to see him up at the hospital gate. Beyond that, we could go. We were will by some kamwalas to manuate it from there, whatever. So it was both the dates actually came as a very, very shocking thing. Both were both displayed something like such a moral courage, They were in frail bodies, but such a moral courage which could be taken in the purest form, So it's a very valuable lives in a way. So, the lessons that one could see was that how system could be cruel, how system could really finish people, such kind of things. That's there. But beyond that, and we saw so many deaths, so many deaths here. These are bit closer, relatively closer ones. So one can point out, okay, how did you feel, or how do you endure these dates? But we are seeing people being killed, people being encountered unnecessarily. My brother was killed while I was in jail. So all these things are very, very traumatic, you know. But yeah, but but largely you can understand the system is made of that. We have to live with, or you have to live with insane that you have to struggle against. That's it.
And how did he keep sane amidst all this? And how did you how would any person would get broken with all of this? How did you keep yourself sane?
No, you do not have. It's not that we were activists. You know, I had a background, parallel background of my professional career. You know, about 40 years they were civil rights movement was born post emergency in the country. I was associated with that, so we were activists, civil rights activists all through. So it is not. uh, that did not happen suddenly or something like we were drawn to, and we understood the system. So that's why we were kind of resisting it too. So reason system thinks that prison breaks, prison is designed to uh, break your bodies, as kill your spirits, all those kinds of things they try to do. But I don't think they could. They're not an example that I know of that they succeeded in breaking the spirit of something like a political prisoners. Okay, so I'm not an exception to that. So I refuse to be broken. Although initially I thought I might not last, but that's not. It actually is a physical death, but no. Never.
Last question. How do you imagine freedom and justice in the country where thinking itself is punished?
This is a good question. In a way, being a last question is a good question, moreover. Today, the situation is such that it's very difficult to understand what freedom is, because freedom is not absence of restraint. Freedom goes to your inner self also, freedom of thinking. So just imagining, how do you imagine freedom? Where imagination itself is surveilled, right? Yeah. How do you imagine something like pursue justice when laws become instrument of punishment, injustice rather? So it's like that. So what we learned in prison is an ideal place. It actually reflects the raw face of power, the state power. So then we realize, because it's an isolated world, but it's still an extension of the outside world. It replicates all the things in a worst possible way. So freedom, you configure, theoretically you do know that you have an outside world, you have inside world, your inner spaces. So one sees that the inner spaces, that means outside world, you are stripped away, stripped all liberties away from there, from us in prison. So what remains is only our mind. We can think, okay? With that thing, you can sort of dissent, you can resist, and that's what all BK people and others also have been doing in prison. They constantly, every day is the fight, every day is a struggle. Okay. So, so that I came to realize, I must say that I came to realize that probably that freedom in such kind of situation is more important than otherwise. Because what outside, there couldn't be enough expression, that there is uh, something like science restrictions kind of spaces. Today, if you want to protest and take a procession, it is banned. You go to a police station, have a meeting, public meeting, it is banned. In public garden, uh, these some people casually invited me. They came, the police people, after some time, and said that, is there a police permission? No, some people, students gathering around and uh, conversing with me, you had to take a police permission. So all these kinds of outside liberties have been stripped away from people. There is no possibility of anything. So how do you exercise your freedom? So that freedom is is freedom of something like preserving critical consciousness, critical thinking. So this becomes your freedom. Your inner spaces is still they still cannot be occupied any powers, howsoever powerful it be. Okay, they are yours. So that freedom is more important because that assures you are still doing. And that is the freedom that I'm exercising. I'm writing, uh, commenting on the system, and trying to educate people and all that. So that is more important. It's not for me, but for anybody for that matter. In today's regime, probably if people keep that kind of critical consciousness alive, that is the only hope that we can overcome this today's darkness and something like the hope, hope for light through the tunnel.
Which we need. Thank you so much, and I'm